Okay, so boom. The original plan for this entire topic was to be bite-sized, but as I kept thinking more on it, I wanted to touch on other things because I like to over-explain things at times just because I want people to get the clear picture I'm delivering. So then it was gonna be a full video, but then I was like, nah, I should commit to the bite-size, especially because of how much subject jumping I'll do. So...
always eat the one you love.
Kubo has created a fleshy world in Bleach. Now, a lot of people don't realize that because it's a mirror to our world, and so they can often think that there's not much world building on Bleach's part or any story that takes place within our world. And let me tell you, as someone who has several work in progresses that has magic and takes place in our world, you have no fucking idea how hard that shit is. I'm having fun, sure, but it's a series of covering holes and answering questions for the rest of your life, all because I really like the Eldridge location trope. With Bleach, we don't actually spend a lot of time in human society, as in connecting with humans, as much as we spend a lot of time in other societies. What Kubo is giving us with places like the Soul Society and Wakamundo and the Empire of Light is that it reflects us in different ways. The Soul Reapers, the Arrancar, and the Quincy's are all these powerful beings, and yet their societies are just as capable of having people fall through the cracks as our own human society. Whether it's through their government or their general cultures, Kubo is showing us these major faults in all of them. So, the Soul Society.
Who the fuck fucked up this house like that? Good God!
Kubo is constantly showcasing that the Soul Reapers of the Soul Society are not really the good guys. They're merely the allies of the protagonists. They're not good guys in a sense that they're protecting the world, they're good guys in the sense that they're maintaining balance for some and maintaining the status quo for others. There is a strong difference. Think Omni-Man. He was a good guy for protecting Earth, but he wasn't really protecting Earth, was he? He wasn't defending Earth, he was marking his territory. The Gotei 13 often represents this obligation to necessary evil. They will allow for bad things to happen so long as it doesn't threaten their bottom line. This is showcased in the fact that they are not obligated to protect all of the Soul Society. Their main focus is solely the Cerete. So the people that live in the Rukon district are basically told to go fuck themselves. It's very similar to here in the States where joining the military is seen as a way to get out of poverty for a lot of people. But this oversight of the Rukon district allows for invaders and enemies to wantonly massacre them. We rarely see the Gotei 13 actually stop these massacres. They're only ever investigating the aftermath. The Gotei 13 mainly existing to serve the interests of the four noble houses, which is similar to cops in the United States, who have more legal obligation to protect property and the interests of the wealthy than protecting the people. Even the creation of the Gotei 13 is similar to modern day cops here. Cops originating from slave patrols and essentially boiled down to a bunch of hooligans given legal leeway to harm rather than protect. And it's in that regard that a character like Rukia is such a great character. She's introduced at first and she's constantly talking up the Soul Society, even telling another soul that's scared to move on that it's a great place when that's not true. And Rukia knows that. Rukia's lived in the Rukon district, but what's interesting is really that she's saying this for two reasons. One that's central to her character is the unwavering support of a system that benefits the four noble houses, one of which adopted her at Byakuya's request. He went on a limb to give her this good life and she has to repay it. She feels indebted to them, and that means towing the line and performing like a good soldier, even if she doesn't believe it herself. Her behavior towards Ichigo when she's taken back being a necessary evil in order to protect him and Uryu from further harm, and then later protecting everyone when they come to rescue her by rejecting them. Rukia is convinced that her death is necessary. She has threatened the balance that the Soul Society seeks to protect. Her death maintains that balance. Her death maintains the status quo. You, some worthless urchin that was blessed by the charity of one of these exalted houses, you'd seek to destroy all of this. You'd seek to threaten everything that was here long before you for your own sake. Don't you think that's selfish? Don't you think you're being selfish, Rukia? Which brings us right back to the soul she's talking to. Sure, she's lying to him, and she knows he could go to the Soul Society and end up living in squalor like she did. But all of this is just waiting, because when they die again, they'll be reborn as human again. This suffering is necessary because it'll all work out in the end. What's the alternative? Let the soul wander the human world where a hollow will eventually consume them? It doesn't matter where it falls on the spectrum of morality. If it maintains the balance, than it is necessary. Two other characters that showcase this idea is Mayuri and Kenpachi, both serving as examples of it's better for them to be on our side than be against us. Mayuri in particular rings very similar to something like Project Paperclip. What is Project Paperclip? Basically, it was an operation where the US brought in German scientists to work for them. Why was it secret? Because they were Nazis. Mayuri does a lot of fucked up shit, including cruel experimentations and sacrificing soldiers, and people do dislike him for his behavior. They find him weird and disgusting, both in-universe and out of it, but again, it's fine, because it's necessary. Even the existence of the Soul King is questionable. He's really a king in name only. He's a prisoner in reality, but it's necessary. Is a society that relies so much on necessary evil to sustain itself really worth preserving? Because something always seems to be threatening this balance. But also, the Gotei 13 only ever react to issues and then perform damage control. They never really seek to prevent. And why do they need to, right? They're unquestionably the ones in charge. Compare that to the Quincy. Of course, they were preparing for war, but they were still preparing. They were making plans and notes in the case of certain individuals. Can you imagine a time the Gotei 13 has done something like that? At best, Mayuri does, and we know what can often transpire in his experiments. The only case many can think of easily is fake Karakura Town. However, they would have never had to come to that if they took shit seriously to begin with. Aizen's entire crusade should be a black stain on the Gotei 13's history, because future Soul Reapers will learn about Aizen and be like, what the f did you mean you didn't know what his power was? And yet, y'all let him become captain? I repeat, a society that hinges itself on maintaining balance and the status quo to a point they're willing to murder and spy on people. Yet, how many people in this room do you think can confidently tell you what Aizen Shikai and Bankai is? I feel like we don't talk about that enough. Like, I really want each of these to look me dead in my face and tell me what his Zanpakuto does.
Quickly.
Because it had to be something they thought was so good that it was worthy enough of becoming captain in the first place. Not a single goddamn thought behind y'all's eyes, just vibes. What makes this whole Aizen thing worse is that it wasn't even them that dealt the final blow. It was a hybrid substitute Soul Reaper and the guy they exiled because they couldn't even be bothered to give him a fair trial. What they think he did was vile as shit, but who cares because they gave Mayuri a damn promotion. No, the Soul Society's government doesn't upset me. Why do you ask? The Soul Society, but maybe the Serete and the Gotei 13, relies heavily on complacency. There are no gods but them. Why should they feel threatened by anyone? And if they don't feel threatened, well then, why do they need to take precaution? Why prevent when reacting is all you'll be required to do?